Hello, everybody. We are getting started with our webinar here at Rocket Matter on Excel. Very excited to have everybody with us. So I'll tell you the story I know that I heard at ABA Tech Show one time, and that's the American Bar Association's annual technology show. So I was listening to these legal technology consultants, the people that go in and help you learn how to use your printers and your software and stuff, and they saw somebody, an attorney, with a huge stack of paper, and they were going through all these papers, and there were 25,000 rows of like a spreadsheet that the guy printed out, and he was going through highlighting, and he was looking for the largest values. So that's something like, you hear stuff like that, and for somebody that knows how to use Excel, you're like, okay, well, boy, could we have saved that guy a lot of time. So in any case, when I started this Microsoft 365 series, I really kind of was focused on Excel because I thought that there was like a lot of functionality in Excel that lawyers don't know about, and some of that's a function of the whole like, okay, history and poli-sci majors a lot of times, that end up in law school and become lawyers don't have a lot of exposure to some of the stuff that maybe like economic students might have, and there's just such power in here. So let's go ahead and dive right in. And a lot of the stuff that I wanted to teach today, that I'm going to be teaching today, I actually wanted to teach as part of an overview of Microsoft 365 as a whole, which included like Word, Excel, Outlook, PowerPoint, all that kind of stuff. And I was like grossly mistaken because there's just so much material in it, and it really needs a little bit of attention. So somebody wrote in, by the way, can you show me how to do this, or can you show me how to do that? Keep those coming. I don't know that I'm going to be able to show them now, but I can always record a little video down the road and post it to our blog, and then you can take a look at it. So if I don't get to it today, then I can get to it later. So who am I, and what business do I have talking to you guys today about all this stuff? So I am Larry Port. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Rocket Matter, and I founded LexCharge. So it kind of stumbled into this whole business, but I've been using Excel since the 1990s. So I used it when back on Windows 95 machines. So I've been using it for a long time. And then, when you run a software company, you have to use Excel like all the time. I'm not saying I'm a master at it. Maybe I'm a brown belt at it, you could say. There's people like, the financial professionals who live in New York, they call them Excel jockeys. These guys, if you look at their, kind of a funny story, if you look at their keyboards, some of these guys that work for private equity companies and investment companies, they'll remove the F1 key from their keyboard. And why is that? Because they're in Excel so much. If you hit F1 in Excel, it brings up help, and it like slows everything down, and it brings up this window, and it's right next to this other key called F2 that's very useful for seeing references, which is something that we'll talk about. Okay. Lisa, audio check. How am I sounding? Am I sounding good? Because we got a question about mic skipping.
All good on my end.
Okay, if you're hearing mic skipping, it is you. Sorry about that. You can log out and log back in. Now, I'm very approachable. If you have any questions, email me, larry.port@rocketmatter.com. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, but LinkedIn, to be honest, is kind of a little spammy these days. So the best way to get a hold of me is like larry.port@rocketmatter.com. All right. Why should you even bother with this? Well, to be honest, you're going to encounter Excel. I think we all know that. To me, the big thing is that like if you really want to grow your practice and you really want to like, it's very hard for you to model out how you're going to grow and how you can work on your practice without Excel. Excel is like the number one like awesome tool for like kind of modeling out your financial performance. It's one thing to be able to use it, but it's another thing to be able to use it to help you understand your practice, and that's why I love it. And then I say gain insights quickly. Yes, very much. My email, by the way, is larry.port@rocketmatter.com. If in case you want to ask me any questions, just one more time. And then Lisa, maybe you can throw that into the chat so everyone can see. All right. So this is terrifying, right? You look at this and you don't know Excel, and you see something like this and you're like, oh my God, what is that? So, I get it. To be honest, you know, it still kind of terrifies me, but I promise you, by the end of this thing, you're going to understand what this means. Okay. So we're just going to go through this. We're going to start with the foundations and then we're going to go through it bit by bit. Um, you know, one thing, what I'd like to do is I'd like to kind of get a pulse on everybody and see where people are, because this is like one of these kind of things where there may be people that know nothing, and there might be people that are kind of sophisticated that want to go to the next level. So let's see where you are. So if you can, I'm asking a poll, like, which of the following Excel functions do you currently use? Some an average, never used it before. So please pop into the poll and answer those questions. And then the second thing is that we're thinking about maybe putting some self-guided training courses up based on the material that we're doing, where we go even further and more in depth. So we're trying to get a handle on, you know, if there's an appetite for that or not. Because if there is, then maybe we could devote more time to coming up with Excel and Word and PowerPoint courses that might be useful for legal professionals. So would love to hear what people have to say about it. Okay, I'll leave that poll open for a couple more minutes. And by the way, there are some experts on the call. I know that for a fact because I know some of you and I know how much you know. So keep in mind though, we want to make sure that we can bring everybody along on this one. All right, let's see where we are. Okay, the number one answer is that people can use basic functions, right? About 60% of the people said they can use sum and average. So if you don't know how to do that, that's fine. Don't worry about that. You're going to know by the end of the session. Some people, like the next highest answer is, I've never used an Excel function before. And that's totally fine. But you know, what I would encourage you to do is, I don't know if you want to do this Bob Ross style where you fire up an Excel spreadsheet and you try and follow along. I might be moving a little too fast for that. What I would suggest is practicing after, you know, this webinar, and trying to repeat some of the stuff. And what we can do is we can distribute the spreadsheets that I'm working on, because I'm going to be doing sample spreadsheets. So, okay, let's keep going. And then looks like there's some interest, like, you know, top answer is 25 bucks. Some people would pay 0. And for the people that would say $100, I love you. That's great. All right, so let's close this poll and let's keep going. Now, up here you see on my screen, this is some of the stuff that I've been working on. And one of the things I want to point out is that the Lean Law Firm, we kind of spell out in this book, this is an American Bar Association that I wrote with my friend Dave Maxfield. He's an attorney in South Carolina. There's a lot of stuff in here that relies on the ability to calculate numbers, and like a little bit of Excel knowledge is pretty important. In fact, if you go to the Lean Law Firm website, you go to the resources tab, you're going to see all sorts of Excel spreadsheets. And then we do webinars too, so just thought you should know that. And by the way, stay tuned towards the end. At the end, we have a giveaway, and we're going to give away a Star Wars Chewbacca spatula. So one lucky person on this webinar is going to get a Chewbacca flexible spatula, but you have to be participating in the polls and the questions, or else we won't pick you. And also, I'll be giving away one free audiobook credit for the Lean Law Firm. So you can listen to your car, which is much easier than reading our book. Now, we'll get into the promotion later. But if you don't have Excel right now, or if you're like trying to figure out how Microsoft 365 works, basically the days of shelling out hundreds of dollars to get Microsoft products are over. What you do is you pay a little bit of money each month, and then you have access to all these powerful tools. I don't recommend Business Basic. I recommend at least Business Standard. I think that's where you need to be. For solo and small firms, let's say you have like up to 5 users and stuff, that's probably good enough. Once you start getting into the 15, 20 range, you might want to start thinking about Business Premium. But if you look at what they have, the real difference between like the 1250 plan, which is the second from the left, and the one to the right of it, which is the $20 plan, is the $20 plan has like a lot of stuff you don't need, right? But they both have all the core stuff: Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint. You probably aren't going to use Publisher Access, but Teams is critical, OneDrive is critical, SharePoint is critical as well. And the basic plan only has like mobile and web versions of these products. You need the desktop versions, in my opinion. There also Microsoft 365 has like all sorts of other things aside from Excel. So if you want Excel and you pay for Excel, you get this stuff too. So there's all sorts of stuff. There's lists, there's to-do list applications, there's teams, I mean, there's project planner. I mean, I don't know what half these things are. So, I mean, would love to know if somebody's using one of these things and finding it really useful for themselves. So let's start with the basics, okay? I wanna give you the lay of the land and we're gonna build up from there. So let's do this. Let's get ourselves an Excel spreadsheet, and I want to get one that's meaningful to the practice of attorneys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into a Rocket Matter installation and pull down a Matter report, just so you can see a real life use case of what an attorney might be doing with Excel. So I'm in my practice management application, and I go to the business intelligence tool. And let's say I want to run a matter overview report, right? This is a custom report that I built. I'm going to run my report. Okay, so this is the custom report that I built, and I'm going to export it. And down it comes. So let's pop this thing open and see what it looks like. Here it is. Okay. Now I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that one of the #1 reasons that I think people have trouble with Excel is because it just looks awful when you first open it. And people I think have a bit of they have trouble a little bit with the formatting of it and like making it like work to the way they want. So I'm going to spend a couple of minutes working on this thing to get it to look the way we want it to look. And everything that I'm teaching right now is stuff that is going to be valuable for you to know. Okay. The first thing I want to do right now is I want to save this file as something else. Now, we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but when you download Excel documents from a lot of web applications, you'll notice that they're saved as .csv file. That stands for comma separated values. It's not a true Excel file yet. And we'll talk about that. We will address that towards the end of the talk. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to save this. So I'm going to click Save As. And I have a little folder here for you all. It's my Office 365 stuff. So I'm just going to call this thing Matter Overview Report. That's my file name. Now down here, I'm going to change the file format from comma separated values. And there's all this crazy stuff down here. I'm going to save it all the way at the top to .xlsx, right? That's an Excel workbook. I'm going to save it there. And now we have a fully highly functional Excel workbook. Okay, first things first. We got our canvas. Now, what we're going to do is, if this was a Bob Ross thing, we're going to be painting the sky. That's the first thing he always did, right? So it's too hard to see. So usually when things are, I mean, this is, if you look up here, right? This is, the font is Calibri and the font size is 12. Now, normally in Word, a 12-point font is like super easy to see, but here it's not. So here, what we're going to do is there's a couple ways we can do this, but we're going to zoom in to about 150%. So if you see my cursor at the bottom of the screen, and by the way, let me know, and I'm going to pop back into the chat here because I want to make sure that you guys can see my cursor. And because, you know, moving around an Excel spreadsheet it can be kind of dicey, but you should see, I made my cursor much bigger so that you could see it. And I have some of the accessibility functions turned on so that you can read things better, right? So that's 100%. So really what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to 150%, if you see right there. And I was able to access that by clicking the number 100%. And I'm going to click OK. All right, that's better to read. I don't know if it's going to be good enough to read for the webinar, so let me go into the chat and get a bead on you guys. So, by the way, people are talking about getting CLE certification in other states aside from Florida. This is for Florida only. So if you want, and this is a free course, so if you want certification in other states, you're on your own. So anyhow, if you want to bounce and leave.
No,
So,
so Larry, just so you know, I was saying I can create certificates for those who can submit those to their other bar association. So if you require a certificate, just make sure to email me after the webinar, lisa.pancini@rocketmatter.com. I'll be happy to oblige. All right.
oh, rock on. Okay, so Lisa's a lot nicer than I am. By the way, I'm conducting this in my parents' house, and if we get lucky, my mom may come down and give me a sandwich because that happened on my previous meeting. So, all right, so everybody can see, people seem to think that the things look good. All right, so we've taken a step in the right direction. We can now see it a little bit better. Remember, almost every single time you open an Excel document, you are going to have to zoom in. That's the first thing you need to know. The second thing you need to know is that you can't really see all the values here in the columns. And you can see that if you look at this row, for example, row 2, you see that access, what looks like chemical, is cut off and debt restructuring is cut off. And you know, it can look even worse. Let me show you something. If numbers are too big for the column, they show up as these little number signs. So a lot of times people open up spreadsheets and they see that stuff and they're like, oh my God, what happened to my numbers? It's just Excel is giving a shorthand saying you need to make this column bigger so that you can display the number. Now, there's two ways we can make these columns bigger. And I know this seems like completely stupid that I'm talking about it, but trust me, in about 5 seconds, you're going to be extremely happy. You can, if you go between the boundaries between two columns like E and F right here, you can drag it over. That's the one that most people do. The other thing you can do is when you go between columns E and column F, you see this like double arrow thing. And if I double click that, it's going to size it immediately to this to accommodate the maximum value, which in this case is probably the header that says pending amount, right? Because nothing else is that big. But if I want to do it, if I don't want to have to do that column by column, what I can do is I can go into the upper left in this little like box that has like 2 triangles in it. And if I click on that, that's kind of like a select all. And then if I go between any column that needs to be resized and I double click, just like I did before, it's going to resize everything appropriately. So watch this. Watch how I double click. All the columns are now at the right size, right? So that means that I can see all. Now, if you have like certain columns that have like a massive amount of text in them, then one column is going to get super wide, and you might not want that to be the case. All right. Now, the next thing I want to do, are there any questions so far on getting this thing in good shape? The next thing I want to do is I have these pending amounts, but really those are kind of dollar values. So I have invoiced amount, collected, and balanced. So what I want to do is I want to change these to dollars, because right now they're just like they're really kind of even whole numbers. Only one of them has a decimal point. So instead of like going through and dragging, like I can select all of these columns. I can hit, if you hit the like letter, then I can then I'm selecting everything in column E. And if I hit the shift button, I can select multiple columns. So right now what's happening is I'm selecting multiple columns because I'm holding the shift button down while I'm selecting them, right? And then I'm going to go up here to the dollar sign, and that says, okay, those columns are going to be formatted as numbers. So now I have accounting formatting, which means that the zeros are going to be represented as dashes. And there's all sorts of different formatting options. And then there's a dollar sign for each of these. So now, and then, you know, you have the same kind of formatting options that you have in Word. So let's take our header, right? And let's make it bold. And let's bump up the font size, you know? And maybe we don't like Calibri. Maybe we like something else. So we can go up here and we can change the font now that we have the spinning wheel of death. There we go. Let's change it to Helvetica New. Okay, now we have different font. Oh, and look, the columns are all screwed up. So I can do select all, and then I can double click here, and then everything's now fixed again. Okay, so that's, believe it or not, that's like a big thing, because like I think a lot of people hate working with Excel and they don't understand Excel because they can't get to look the way they want it to look. Are we ready for our next thing, or do we need to, Lisa, do we need to stop and answer a few questions?
No, one participant asked how you can select non-contiguous columns. So the answer to that is if you hold the Command key on a Mac or the Control key on Windows, you can select columns that are not next to each other if you need to do what Larry just showed you.
That's awesome. That's a great tip. So, and that works in a lot of different contexts too. You know, so like for instance, if you're in a file folder or something like that, then you can select contiguous things with Shift, and then I think it works the same way on a PC, but on a Mac you can select non-contiguous things with the is it the Command button on Mac?
Yes.
Yeah, and then I guess it might be the Control button on a PC. Okay. Um, Here, this may an Excel spreadsheet, and this is a real basic one, but you need to know this, is because a lot of times people just use Excel just to like create lists of things, but you do need to know that it is a coordinate system. It is just like chess, except that the number of rows like can exceed like 1 billion or something like that, and the number of columns can exceed 1 billion, which would make a very complicated chess game. But so everything is like has a numeric value, like and like right here, I'm in column A, row 2. Over here, I'm in column C, row 13. And if I was ever confused about that, right here, you can see that it's C13. It's in the upper left-hand side, right? So that's important because we're going to build on this coordinate-based system, right? And so let's now jump back into the PowerPoint presentation and see where we are. Okay, so time check. It's 20 after the hour. We're going to be talking about references, and then once we do references, we're going to talk about a concept called anchoring, and then ranges. And these things are going to come like they all are going to work together. And then the good news is that we're going to keep using them as we go towards doing sums and averages and max, so that you'll see them again and again. But these, like once you get a handle on like how to like manage a spreadsheet, like we just did, and that was it's half the battle, believe it or not, at least for me. Let's now go into kind of these are the basic building blocks that we're going to have at our fingertips. Actually, one small thing that I should mention, that I am using Excel on a Mac, but it's really there's very little difference between what's going on a Mac and what's going on Windows. So if you're watching this demonstration and you're going to practice later or whatever, this is a screenshot of what it looks like on Windows. And if you go back over to my my install, then you can see that it looks very, very similar, right? You have all of the formatting things over here and some of these things. There's a lot, but it's pretty similar. Okay. So remember how we were just talking about there's this big coordinate system. So what you can do is then you can refer to cells from other cells, which is really where the power of Excel starts to lie. And then you're going to see that we can refer to cells, and we can also have these things called anchors. And I'll show you why they're important. Let's do this. Let's go back over to our spreadsheet. And let's start working down here. Okay. Let's just get a couple things going here. Let's say that we're looking up a value, okay? So, and we want whatever's in the cell that's in A3. So we get the value 2. Was that correct? Well, let's go up to A2 and see. Let's just do a sanity check on that. And if we go to A2, oh, A3, yes, the number is 2. If we go to this cell, E3, it should be, what is this number? $13,000. So if I change this, and and one other thing is, notice that I say equals, I think I do equals E13. Oops, I picked the wrong one. This one is what is this one? E3? Yeah, E3. So if I just type in E3, it's going to say E3. I have to type in equals E3 in order to get that reference, right? So that's how that works. That's if I type it out. But the other thing I can do is I can just click on the cell. If I hit equals, then I can go over here and I can click on the cell and it's going to do the work for me. I don't have to type it in. And I hit that and it's there, right? Now, I've already actually started writing a formula. So really what I could do is I could say equals E29 up here, right? You see that? Equals E29. I could say times 2. So now I've written a formula. That's a basic formula. So what I've said is, all right, take the value that's in E29 and multiply it by 2. If you see that right there. So the value in E29 is, and by the way, when I'm clicking on this, it highlights the cell that I'm referring to in blue. So you see the 2,200 in blue, that's E29, and I'm multiplying by 2, and that gives us $4,400. Notice that it also picks up the formatting of the accounting stuff. Okay, watch this though. Excel has very powerful and intelligent copy and paste functionality. So if I go here and I copy the value of the cell, the second I click copy, you're going to see like this like dotted animated line around the cell. And if I go down and I click paste, you would think like normally when you click paste, it's going to say you would think it would also say $4,400. But what happens in this context? What happens in Excel when I go to the next row and I hit paste? Well, it says $350, right? So why is that? Why does it say $350? Because in Excel, if you have a reference to a cell and you move to a different row or column, Excel will adjust because it thinks you want to adjust, right? It thinks that the natural tendency is to kind of replicate the rows and columns of the table, right? And this can be a great thing for people, but it can also be tremendously frustrating if you're not aware of that. Now, remember, so because we're in these, what I did was I went underneath E29, which if you remember is what I was referencing here, and I'm multiplying by 2. So what Excel did is it went to the next cell down and multiplied that by 2. In fact, if I go here and we take a look at this, the formula that's in here is E30 times 2. So it automatically adjusted. And in case you don't believe me, the next one should be 4480 if we go down here, and the next one should be 2200 if we go here, right? So do people understand what Excel is doing here? No, because there's a way around this. Lisa, I just want to check any questions about this one, because I just want to make sure, please don't be afraid to ask questions about this, because, you know, I just want to make sure that everybody's keeping up.
So there's just a handful of no's, but mostly yeses.
Okay, so all right, so if you're in the no category, bear with me, all right? But the point is that what Excel's trying to do is as you paste, it's trying to stay with that reference, but it's going to go down, because a lot of times when you manipulate spreadsheets, you're like kind of doing things with a column that's next to it. Here's a better example, right? Let's say, for example, let's say that we want to have a price change, okay? So we have a pending amount, an invoiced amount, and collected. So what I'm gonna do here is I can insert a column. So I'm gonna insert a column, and I'm gonna call it with price change, okay? And let's say that I want to multiply. Let's say that I want to see what would happen, how much money I would collect on a matter by matter basis if I raised my prices by 20%. So one thing I could do is I can say, okay, I hit the equal sign, and I'm going to refer to this cell, which is E2, and I'm going to multiply it by 1.2. What did I say? 20% by 1.2, right? And that's going to give me the value of 6180, right? So I want this to increase as I go down this column. And in fact, what Excel allows you to do is I can go and use my shift key, and I can select all these cells, and I can hit paste, and it goes ahead and inserts all those values because it automatically increments those one by one, right? Now, what happens if I want to do this more intelligently? So this is where anchors are going to come in. Hopefully that we got a couple more no's turned to yeses after that one. So really what you want to do is you don't want to have what I call magic numbers in here. Like we want to simulate a price increase. We don't want to be multiplying it by 1.2 in each cell. What we want to do is really we want to have something down here saying, we want to have our own thing called price increase. And let's call it let's make it a little bit higher, just so that we know that's the difference. So this one down here is 1.25. And you know what? This is not a dollar sign anymore. I want to change this back to a number. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to highlight on this cell, and I'm going to pick this little drop-down list, and I'm just going to pick number. So it's no longer currency. It's just a price increase. Okay. So how do we do this though? So right here, what I want to do is I want to multiply the pending amount times this price increase value. Okay, so we see that here. So now I'm multiplying what's in E2, which is the cell to the left, times C37, which is the price increase value, right? If we go down to the price increase value, you'll see that it is indeed C37, right? But what happens when I want to copy this and paste it to the next row? It turns to 0. Why does it turn to 0? Because underneath the pricing increase is no value. So it's multiplying no value times 1357, and now I'm in bad shape. So the way we solve this is with something called anchoring. And this is a very important tool to know about because it's going to save you from like all sorts of like confusion and madness down the road. And the way we do it is with the mighty dollar sign. So a straight cell reference like B12, which by the way, if you're a vegan, is a very important vitamin for you to consume as a supplement. So that just refers to the value in cell B12. We can anchor that so that it will always refer to the value of B12. No matter how much you copy it, no matter how much you paste it, it will always refer back to B12. So let's see if we can do that with our cell C39 here, right? So let's go back over to Excel. And up here, if you see, it's just E2 times C37. So C37 is the price increase thing. So if I go in here and I add little dollar signs before the C and before the 37, I'm still going to have the same row. And let me go back up there so you can see what it looks like. So the formula now looks like this: E2 times $C, $37. And what that does is that anchors it to that cell. So if I copy this value now, so I'm copying it, you can see the little dotted lines, and I'm pasting it, you'll see that now things are copacetic. And I can go through this entire list and copy it, and it will still, it'll still pick up the correct value in cell C37. So that is so important, because what if I want to do something like, I want to say, okay, that's a funny price increase. I don't know if I like that price increase. Let's change that. Like, all right, so what I can do down here is I can say, what if I just changed it to 10%? Well, let's see, what's the value up here? 64.37. If I increase it by 1.1, because I don't know that everybody's going to be able to tolerate a 25% price increase. That seems a little rough. So if I change it to 1.1, you'll see that now it's down to 5665, and all the values for the entire column have changed. That's power. That is a lot of power, as opposed to going through and having to change all the cell times 1.1 times 1.1 over and over and over again. And the crazy thing about these references is that they don't even have to be on the same worksheet. In fact, they don't even have to be in the same file. I think that's a bad practice, but a very common practice for people to do is they have another worksheet. So you can see that down here, right? You can see that I have sheet 1 and I have the original sheet. So if you just click this little plus button, you get another worksheet. I'm going to double click it, and I'm going to change its name to assumptions. Okay, and I can even drag this sheet so it comes first, right? And then what I want to do is I actually want to move this value out of here to this page over here, assumptions. And let's boost it up. Let's do the same things we did before. Let's make this 150, and I'm click OK. So now I have this price increase over here on this tab. I removed it from here and it's still referring to that cell. But if you look at the formula now, it says E2 times assumptions B1. So now I may have lost people, but basically what I did was I anchored the cell and I moved it to its own worksheet. So it can be on a different worksheet. You can still refer to it. And in fact, the answer, so just to prove that, the value here is 5665, right? If let's change the assumption, and let's make this a 30% price increase. And now the value is 6695. So that is greatly increased. So how'd I do, Lisa? Did I lose everyone?
Yeah, one of the main questions we were getting it was, will the function still work if the anchor gets moved? And you just answered that question and you moved it to a whole new sheet.
Right. I saw the future and I answered the question. So, so there's a couple other little tweaks. So remember, I showed you this crazy syntax with the $sign that is, like, let's face it, it's like ugly to look at. But if you can put the $sign in front of the, if you put the $sign in front of the column and the row, then it will lock in both of those. If you keep the column without the $sign, but you put the $sign before the row, so if it's B $sign 12, it'll always refer to row 12, but the column might change. And you'll find that there are certain instances where that is valuable to you. And likewise, you can lock down the row. You can have the rows stay the same always, but the column move. And that may be valuable to you as well. So the $sign can be used for the row or the column or both. So just keep those things in mind. I'm not going to demonstrate that, but if you want to play around with that later, you can play around with it later. Okay, we are. Let's take a mental clarity break here for a second before I get to ranges. Ranges are a lot easier. Ranges is a very simple concept, but you need to know about it because it's a vocabulary word that we're going to use. Any other questions, Lise, that I can answer for the time being?
Let's see. Lots of questions about the $signs, which was explained. Do you know if there's a shortcut to anchor a cell rather than putting in the $signs?
There is an anchor cell, and I know what it is on Mac, and I used to know what it was on PC. So if you know what it is on PC, let me know. So what you can do is, let's make this, let me do it.
On a Windows machine, it's F4.
It's F4. So you probably, all right. So yeah, that's, it's a lot easier on a Mac because, so let's say I want to make the anchor this one. So while I'm still in the process, before I've clicked out of the cell, I can hit Command T and it actually cycles through them. So it's $sign B1 first. If I hit Command T again, it goes B $sign 1. And then I can do it again, $sign B1. And then, you know, without the anchors. So that's how it works on a Mac. But so it's Command T on a Mac, and it is what is it, F4 on a PC. Okay. Yeah, that's a good thing to know about. All right. Okay, so a range is really just an area of your Excel document, right? And it has a specific notation. It's usually start cell and then end cell. So in this case, like it could be B12 to B24, and it would just be a column. This one is B12 to C24, so it is like a whole block. It's 2 columns and 2 rows, so it's 2 by 12 table is what this is, this range. But in Excel knows ranges by that starting cell. Actually, you're probably seeing me reversed. Starting cell and ending cell notation with a colon in between it. So let's just take a look. All right, so let's go back to our trusty report here. And if I click here and I go down here to the bottom row, All right, so I have a range now basically of, what is it? Of E2 through E35. Now this is really valuable because when I do my most basic functions, I need a range, right? So when we're going to do a sum function first, and we're going to do a range. So let's try that. So let's do sum. Well, let's call it total because that's what it's going to be to us, right? And I'm going to make that font just a little bigger so everybody can see. And it's a total, for crying out loud. Let's make it bigger. So what I'm going to do in this next cell is, remember, I have to hit the equal sign first, and then I have to type in sum. And now I have a contextual menu popping up. And that means, okay, because Excel has like all of these built-in functions that you can take advantage of. And some of them are like for statisticians and all sorts of crazy, you know, options traders on Wall Street. So you don't need most of them. But so don't get daunted by some of this horrible looking stuff. So just click on sum. And then when you click on sum, it gives you some additional information. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that. But I'm going to type in my range. I'm going to type in, let's see, I'm going to type in E2 colon E35. And then you can see that the range, when you have a range and you're working with a range in Excel, it like colors it a certain way. So I'm going to hit the closing parenthesis and I'm going to hit return. And I've just written a sum function. So go me. Now, it's pretty straightforward, right? Let's go to this next cell and I'm going to show you another way you can do that. Now, what happens if I don't put the equal sign? So everybody does this. I'm going to put sum, this, and I'm going to say F2 through F35. What happens? It just says sum F2 through F35. So the reason, sometimes you'll find yourself doing things like this, and that's a common error. And the reason is because you don't have an equal sign. So let's get rid of that. I'm going to hit my trusty equal sign first, and I'm going to hit sum. And instead of typing in the range, I'm going to show you that you can do the same thing that we did before. I'm going to click on the first cell in the range. Then I'm going to hit this the shift button and click on the last cell in the range. And I'm going to hit the parentheses and enter, and there you have that. So great. So we have the total. So if I increase my prices by what percent is that? If I go back to the assumptions tag, it's 30%. Then instead of making $39,000, I would make $51,000. Now, remember when I demonstrated before that if you copied and pasted, Excel kind of takes a gander of where you are and like adjusts everything over. Well, I can do that with the sum function. So you can see here, right? It says sum F2 from F2 to F35. That's the range. Now, if I take this whole cell and copy it, and you can see it's activated. Sorry. I can move it right here. It's summing up this whole row, and you can see it's sum G2 through G35. So Excel likes to move the ranges as you move your functions and as you're working with the documents. And that's a really amazing function. But if you don't understand anchors, then it's going to be a nightmare for you. So that's why I went through anchors first. And then I can do that over here as well. Okay. And I don't even know what is this column? Invoiced amount and collected. Okay. All right, good. Now there's other functions too. So we can, so we see the sum of, we see the sum of these, the totals of all of our matters. We're going to now look at the, and let me copy this amazing formatting. So let's do, I want to take a look at the average. I want to take a look at the min value. What's the minimum value? And clearly it's going to be 0. And what's the maximum value? I'm just copying and pasting that word because it has juicy formatting. Okay. Now, if we know how to do the maximum value, then we can avoid the terrible fate of the lawyer who printed out the 25,000 row document and had to search through it and highlight things. So for the average, it's quite easy. You hit equals average, and you want to have the range. Now, if I anchor this, it's going to make it easy for me to copy that range going forward. Okay. It's not going to make it easy to go sideways, but it's going to make it easy. And this is where going like sticking with the column, actually, that is a good application of this. So we want the column to move, but we want the row to stay the same. So let's take a look at that. If you see that, I'm only going to anchor the row, not the column. So let's take out the anchor on the column. And this is going to blow some people's minds a little bit, and I'm sorry about that. But what that allows us to do is if I go over here, see, it moved F, but it kept the rows the same. Isn't that cool? Excel's very, very cool like that. And if I go down here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click equals min. And I can do the same thing that I did there. So what were we? We were at E2 through E35. Is that right? Right, that's the minimum, and that's no surprise to us. And then the maximum, which is the avoid the 25,000 row printout issue, gives us this, and then we can copy that to the other cells and they adjust accordingly. Okay, so already we're seeing a lot of power and usage through Excel. And now with 10 minutes left, we have some super fancy stuff. Not super fancy, but enough to get you going. Lisa, any questions right now?
One of the questions, which actually might even help you, is how do you freeze a row or a column?
You mean, oh, just for demonstration?
To keep it visible on the screen. We can do this twofold.
Yeah, so if you want to like freeze a column, what you can do is if like, let's say like highlight row number 2 and I never know where it is, but there's things, there's a function called freeze panes. Okay, so it's underneath window, freeze panes. You see that underneath the window thing, freeze panes. And I go here. Now, if I scroll down, it'll keep that column pegged. Okay, now what happens when that starts getting annoying? I can go to window, unfreeze panes. It's a toggle. So it only says unfreeze when you're frozen, and it only says freeze when you're unfrozen. So that's how that works. And it can also work with a column as well. So if I go here and I say window, freeze panes, and I go and I scroll this way, then it freezes my columns as well. So I'm going to go window, unfreeze panes, and then there we are. Okay. All right. So I hope everybody's following along, because, but then, you know, there's Excel allows you to do all sorts of tricky things. And if we can get to the VLOOKUP with the time we have, amazing, great. With time we have left, that would be amazing. If we can't get to the VLOOKUP, then I'll record a video and I'll send it out later. I promise I won't create a course for $100 to make you learn the VLOOKUP. So an if statement, right? What happens if you have a condition that decides what value a cell should contain? Like what if you want to take an action and you don't want a certain situation to happen, right? So a common thing is in Excel is like, do you remember from math class what happens when you divide by 0? Like you can't divide by 0. It doesn't exist, right? So what happens if I have another column in here and just to prove an argument, and I say half, 50% off. Like, okay, so then what I want to do there is, let's say that I'm just doing something like, actually, that's not going to work. Let me think about this. So I want a situation in which I'm dividing by 0. So let's say I had a target amount for each case, right? And the target was $10,000. So let's say that I want to find out what percentage of the target I'm at. So I'm going to say this cell, I'm going to say $10,000 divided by this. I'm not sure if this is going to work. But for whatever reason, let's say that I want to divide the 10,000 divided by E2. okay? And that's going to give me, and let's change that to a number, 1.94. But and maybe that gives me all valid values here. But what happens um, if I'm dividing by 0? Then I get this horrible, nasty error message that's very mean from Excel that says div equals 0. So what I can do is I can write an if statement, right? So I can write, and let me go to the format before I type this nasty thing. Basically, what it is this. So I write, just like it did equals sum, I'm going to write equals if, and then, but inside the parentheses are going to go the condition that I want to test for, and then I'm going to put the value if it's true, and then I'm going to put the value if it's false, right? So it's actually for your next little complex function to learn about outside of like sums, averages, mins, and max. The if statement's a great one because it allows you to it allows you to tiptoe towards more complex things, but it's still pretty simple. And it's incredibly useful. So let's say over here, I want to test, before I do this divide by 0 thing, a better way to do it is I can say equals if this cell equals 0, then remember, that's the condition. The conditional test is if that cell equals 0. Now I have to say, okay, what's the value of the true? All right, if E6 is 0, return 0. If it's not, do 10,000 divided by 0, and it returns 0. So that's a safer thing. And oops, I didn't echo. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot this. I did it wrong. Yeah, there you go. So that's a safer thing to use. And now instead of all those painful divide by 0 things, I can now use the valuable thing where I paste in the entire column now has the correct values in it, and I didn't have to change all the like div 0 thing error messages that I had. So that's one thing where you might want to have an if statement, right? The other thing you could say is, okay, discount, right? Maybe I want to give, this is a stupid way of doing things, but I'm just going to illustrate it anyhow. So I'm going to say equals if this equals Sky Bros pending amount times 0.75. So I'd give them a 25% discount. Otherwise, I would just give them the pending amount. All right, so no discount for you, but let's see what happens when I get down to the Sky Brother rows. Okay. Okay, so you can see that here in the first Sky Brother rows, it goes down from 1550 to 1162. So, but everything else stays the same. So I'm doing a test to see, okay, for that client, I want to reduce those rates. So that's another example of the if statement, right? Right here. Okay, we are kind of out of time. So I didn't really get to the VLOOKUP, but I'm going to give you a sense of what it is and what it does. I'm not going to get a chance to really explain it, but basically the whole idea is that what if you would need to look up values in a table, and I'll show you an example spreadsheet of what it does, right? So basically, if you see this here, I exported something from the Rocket Matter Business Intelligence tool that's a referral report, and I see who it's referred by. And let's just say that I have this table here that says, okay, Scott gets a 0.2% referral rate or 20%, Linda gets a 25% referral rate, and Harlan gets a 15% referral rate. So what I'm doing here, if you look at this is a lookup. So what it's doing is it's saying, okay, I'm looking up who's in the referred by column, which is I2, which is highlighted in blue. I'm looking at the range B13 to C15, which is the red table down below, and I want the value in the second column. That's what a VLOOKUP does. And so what it's doing in this case is it's finding Linda Barbara Tomlinson, and it's over in I2, and then it's going to look at that crazy range B13 through C15, which have anchors in it, and it's going to pick the value in the second column of that table. So it would go to 0.25, and that's exactly what you have here. So I can copy and paste, and you're going to get different values based on who's over here, right? So, and that's what VLOOKUP does. I'm not going to get, I can go into this a little bit further, but if you think about it, that's the scary syntax that I showed you at the beginning of the demonstration. And this last part came very fast, so I don't expect that you necessarily got it. But if you think about it, so we looked up the value over on the right, which was Linda. And then we had this table range. So we talked about table ranges, right? So we went that B13 through C15. And then the second column, which specified not the name, but the amount of the referral fee. And then the last one is you usually put false there without other reasons. So without getting into that too much, but it has to do whether it's an approximate or an exact match. And in our case, we wanted an exact match. But we covered this. So, you know, if you watch this, you might not get this immediately right now, but if you watch this again, that horrible thing that I showed you at the beginning of the presentation, you now kind of understand. So you should be excited about that. That's really cool. We did a lot in just 1 hour. So one last thing I want to talk about is that I don't want people getting confused between comma separated values. You get a lot of files that are .csvs. In reality, what does that mean? Like, you have these files that look like this, okay? If you can actually type, like if you see this, it says ID, comma, name, comma, balance. These fields are separated by commas. And I have this first one, which is 1, comma, blue versus white, comma, 3000. And I can add one down here. Let's say 4, comma, Larry versus Lisa, comma, and let's make that $10,000. Now, if I open this in Excel, if I open that CSV file in Excel, there we go. Let's bump that up. You'll see, and I'm going to do my formatting tricks that I showed you at the beginning. Larry versus Lisa's in here, and everything's situated in rows and columns. So it's very important when you're working with a CSV file to save it as an XLSX file so that you get all the rich functionality of Excel preserved, because all this really is this little text file, you know, and but Excel's just reading it in an intelligent way. But so I wanted to show you that because I wanted you to really understand what a CSV file was. Now, okay, I think we have another, before we get to the very end, one thing I want to say is we do have a promotion right now. And the promotion is that if you sign up for our product, Rocket Matter, if you love that business intelligence goodness, or you need practice management, time and billing software, before April 1st, you get 2 free months of Rocket Matter. So we have this promotion. It'll be emailed out to you, but it's rocketmatter.com/365 webinar. Now, Lisa, why don't we launch the last poll, and then we'll get to the CLE information. And then I have a little story for you.
Sure. I think you have to launch it because I'm not a host.
Oh, I'll do it myself. All right. So we just like a little feedback from you if you can, which is if you like this webinar, like, how likely are you to recommend this to friends or colleagues? Don't be shy. If it sucked, let me know. We can always improve it that way. And then the second question is that would you like a free personalized demo of Rocket Matter? Let us know that, and we can help you out. All right, I'll wait a little bit until some of the questions roll in. And Lisa, while I'm waiting for this, do we have any other questions I can answer?
One very basic but very recurring question was, how do you sort a column? Like if you needed to alphabetize a column or make it in like ascending to descending order.
Oh, yeah, that's great. We can do that real quick. Let me show you. Let me pop back in. Oh, hang on a second. So everybody, it's before I pop back in to answer some questions so that those who are on for the hour can go, it's 4657. That's the Florida Bar course, 4657, 1 hour general, 1 hour technology. Again, CLE course number 4657 for Florida. I'm very reachable, larry.port@rocketmentor.com. Lisa, if they want to reach out to you, you feel comfortable giving out your email address?
Sure, I'm putting it in the chat. It's lisa.pancini@rocketmentor.com.
Okay, so yeah, some of the powerful stuff that you have in Excel is the sorting capability, and it sorts based on the type of thing that it is. Like, it's smart enough to know that if it's a number, that it's going to sort it numerically, and if it's a text field, it's going to sort it by text, and if it's a date field, it's going to sort it by date, because they all have different logic on how things sort. So really, it's quite simple. You have a sort and filter button down here. So what's neat about it is that it kind of like understands that, like, you want to sort by this column, but you don't want this column sorted in isolation. If you sorted this column, let's not do this one just because it has that information down below. If you sort a column, it's not going to sort it in isolation. It's going to expand it so that it encompasses the data for the rows. Because how stupid would that be if you sorted your matter by work name and it sorted that, but it left Annabelle Sanchez, and all of a sudden Annabelle Sanchez would be next to the wrong value up here. So I'm going to highlight my row, and I'm going to click over here. The sort, if I click the sort and filter button, it's a sort A to Z, sort Z to A, custom sort, and then filter. So if I do sort A to Z, it says it's exactly what I just described. So data outside your current selection won't be sorted. What do you want to do? And the first option, which is selected by default, is expand the selection, which means that it's going to take Annabelle Sanchez and the numerical values along with work visa application along with it, right? If you select the second value, continue with the current selection, it's only going to sort the matter. So let's see what happens when I click expand the selection and I click sort. Okay, so aggravated assault comes to the top. Now, what happens if I do row C and I do sort and filter and I do sort A to Z and I click continue with the current selection? Oh, that doesn't make sense because let's reverse the sort. It was already sorted. Sort Z to A, continue with the current selection. Now I've really jacked up my file because now Christian Costa is not associated with correct matter. So luckily I can hit undo. And then there's another thing called filtering, and filtering allows you to really, it like allows you to restrict which rows you're seeing. So if I go to the sort A to Z thing, there is a function called filter. And if I click on filter, it's kind of in my opinion, it's not the best user interface. It's really kind of hard to see what's happening because you haven't seen anything. Like, the only thing that's happened is this tiny little down arrow for the people that have hard, like, don't see things so well, it makes it really difficult to see. So shame on you, Microsoft. But if you click on that button, then what you can do is you can only see certain items. Probably doesn't make sense for matter name. Let's try and put a filter here for client name, right? So let's do sort filter. I toggled it off. Now I need to toggle it back on. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the interface for filtering. So I'm going to click the little down arrow and let's just see everything for Sky Brothers. There we go. And now I only have like 4 rows. So that's what filtering does. And then if I want to get rid of filter, what I do is I have to go back over here and I have to turn off that filter toggle, and then I get everything back again. That's important because, like, a lot of, and that happens to even really expert Excel people, is if you set a filter and then you send a file to somebody and they open it up, they're like, where the hell's my data? But you can always see where it is because the number of rows is inconsistent, right? Over here on the left. Okay, I think we're over. And 400 people stayed with us. So I can't thank everybody for staying around. I mean, that's awesome that everybody was so interested in Excel. I know it can be, it's hard teaching a course like this because for some people it's super basic and for other people it's super advanced. So it's hard to hit that middle ground. But, you know, I think though, if you understand things in terms of the Excel fundamentals, in terms of references, in terms of ranges and functions, and you keep that with you, then you'll be able to build on that to explore more complex functions. But you need a basic vocabulary, and hopefully this serves for you here today. I really want to know your feedback because it is a tough course to teach. So
we need to give away the spatula.
Oh my God, Lisa, you're the best. I forgot about that. Okay, so let's do the spatula.
You can't forget Chewy.
No, we can't forget Chewy. All right. Okay, at random, completely at random, Lisa. The winner of the spatula is, oh, this is an awesome name, Georgiana Parisi. So Georgiana Parisi, if you're on the call, you have won a Chewbacca spatula. Email Lisa Pancini and let her know. And now I get to give away a free copy of the Lean Law Firm audiobook. You ready for this one? All right. Okay. By the way, thank you for very active chat participants. The winner of that is Timothy Carignan. So Timothy Carignan, if you're still with us, congratulations. You won a free Lean Law Firm audiobook. So you rock. All right. Thanks, everybody. I think we're going to do another one of these. We might do Outlook or PowerPoint next. And we'll keep you posted for those of you that are interested. If we start putting up courses, we'll let you know about these as well. Thanks so much, everyone. Bye-bye.